You are glad you came to church this morning, aren't you? Didn't know you were going to get something as high quality as that. Hey, this morning we want to give you a word of encouragement. We are excited about the year ahead, and so we thought we would give you a good Cincinnati-style Skyline three-way. So no onions, no beans, just 3 words of encouragement from 2 pastas and some cheese. So Bart was about to pull me off. What are you going to say, Matt? I don't know about this. We're coming at you. We're coming at you fast and furious this morning. We're really excited about this upcoming year, and we want to give you all 3 words of encouragement. So you are going to get exactly that, 3 words of encouragement from us. And Randy, you're going to start us off.
Good morning. Did you have a wonderful Christmas? I hope so. I hope you had a wonderful Christmas and made some good memories. And this morning, we're going to take just a few minutes and go through as we reflect on the past and consider how to get ready for the future and just to live each day right now, because that's what it really is all about. But as we look back, as you look back at 2019, or even if you want to look back further, that's fine. I just want to get an idea of how many of you believe that there is no way that 2020 could be any better than 2019. Not one single hand. Okay. How many of you would be okay if 2020 would be just like 2019? Okay, I see a hand. Can't hardly see anybody right now, but see a hand. Okay. And then, okay, last one. How many of you are counting on 2020 being better than 2019? Okay, there we go. Well, it kind of tends to work that way when you look back at the past and you kind of think about what's all happened. If you really think about it, there are some good things along with the challenges that came your way. But there is really, the reality of it is there is nothing you can do to change what's happened in the past. That's the reality. You can't do anything to change the past. And actually, how you look back at the past can either affect you harmfully or it can help you deal with what's ahead. But you just can't do anything about it. So the big encouragement is to move on from the past. To not be able to move on from the past kind of puts you in a bad spot. Whether it's, the guilt that you're feeling of something you did, or it's the worry that you're feeling because, what about this that's happened to me? Or maybe even the pride of, hey, that was pretty good. I'm feeling good about my past, so I don't even really want to move on. But we have to move on. That's what it's all about. The Bible tells us that the God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And that's pretty cool about God. But that is not us. We are not the same yesterday, today, and forever. As a matter of fact, once we were created, once we were made, that's what got people in trouble. That's what got us in trouble. This is what mankind got in trouble about. They wanted to be like God. And that doesn't happen. We cannot be that way because the reality is we are always changing. Things are always changing. We are not God. The Old Testament is a history of God and his dealing with his people and with people. And dealing with people, if you've had to deal with any people over the last few weeks, whether it was shopping or driving, can be a real challenge, can't it? And that's what God experienced with dealing with his people. And as a matter of fact, the Old Testament prophets, it's written so many times. If you read through the Old Testament prophets, you'll notice there's a lot of anger in there. You ever notice that? Because they weren't living up to what God was really hoping they would live up to, and the prophets were letting them know it. But also sprinkled in there was a lot of hope. In those verses, Isaiah, when he told about there's a Messiah coming. And something that Isaiah wrote, I want to read this morning, I want you to think about, okay? He wrote in Isaiah 43, he said, "Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing." And then he goes on to say this, which I think is really good. Even I, am he who blots out your transgressions for my own sake and remembers your sin no more. I want you to hold on to that. God, even God, he says, I forget. All the things you've done against me, I forget that. And did you catch that? He says, for my own sake. Because God doesn't even want to be that way. He doesn't want to think about that stuff. And David even wrote in Psalm 103, he said, and God remembers our sins as far as away from the east and the west. I don't know if you ever thought about that, but the east and the west is a long ways apart. If you go north, you will eventually come south. But if you start out east, you will never go west. You ever thought about that? That's how far your sin is. God doesn't even, they never even come close to colliding. The east from the west is that far apart. And that's how God thinks about our sins. And we can be thankful for that. Now, it's really hard for me, and it has been hard for me throughout my life, to forgive and forget. Because there are some things that I've done or some people have done to me that I have a hard time forgetting. That's just not how I'm wired. I'm glad God's wired that way, but I'm not. So I've had to come to the conclusion in my life that I have to forgive and move on. And I hope you can do that too. To take what comes your way, to think about it, to figure it out, and then move on. So I got a couple things I just want to wrap up by saying, I think these help me as I deal with the past, as I look back at the past, and I've been around long enough now to have to deal with some of that stuff in the past, the pride of successes and the frustration of failures. But here's what I do. I look for the good. I look for God. Romans 8:28 says, and we know that all things God works for the good for those who love him, who have been called according to purpose. I look for good. I look for God in things. And you know what? The Bible, Jesus even said, if you seek the kingdom, you will find it. If you look for God, you will find him. Also, I've decided I need to take responsibility for what I can do about things. Romans 12:18 says this, if it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. I'm going to take that middle section. This last few years especially, I've really had to ask myself, am I doing everything possible to live at peace with other people? Am I doing what I need to do? So I need to take responsibility for what I can do. Another thing I decided is to be thankful. My heart was full this week because my family got to be all together, and I just was thankful. Many times I just was thankful. I went to luncheon last month for the spiritual care volunteers at Mercy Anderson, and one of the chaplains there shared this thought. As a matter of fact, they gave us this little suitcase, little box suitcase, and it was full of goodies, but it had this one question in it that Chaplain Sue had asked us to think about. And this is a question I hope that you'll be able to think about too. What if you woke up today with only what you thanked God for yesterday? Be thankful, because when you're thankful, that puts a whole different perspective on things. And the last thing I want to just mention is to trust the Lord. Solomon said it way back when he said, trust the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. We need to trust the Lord and not lean on what we know. We need to trust in what God does and what his promises. I have a poem I want to end with, and I read this poem at funerals. So hopefully there's no one close to that today, but it really makes me stop and think. And the reason I read it is because of what it says. And it's a short little poem. It's called The Road of Life. The road we call life may run straight as an arrow, or else it may bend, twist, and wind. It may be well marked and easy to follow, or really hard to find. We've got just one chance to make life worth the living, one chance to walk down the road, one chance to love others and be loved as well, before our footsteps have slowed. We can never go back, so let's do all we can to make life's long journey worthwhile by clearing the way or building a bridge, by giving a hand or a smile.
That's good, Randy. It's good. It's encouraging. Matt.
I needed to hear the forgive and forget. There's some college football officials that I'm struggling this morning to forgive and to forget. So I need to think about the future, not the past. That was good. That was really good. How many of you kids here this morning got some toys? Got maybe a full bucket of toys this Christmas? Did anybody get any toys? Any adults that wish they were still young enough to get toys? I told my boys, I said, guys, at this age, people just give you rectangular boxes with clothes in it. And that's a bummer. right? I remember when I was a little kid, on Christmas morning, we would open our Christmas presents. We would get all chocked full of sugar. And then when we were just about at a bursting point, my parents would push us all in the family van, and we would head an hour south of where we lived to Louisville, Kentucky, to my grandparents' house. And I remember on that trip, you would get out. You'd only bring one or two of your toys that you got for Christmas, one or two of your presents, because one, you knew you were going to get more presents at Grandmommy and Granddaddy's, but two, there just wasn't room in the van for all of the junk that we had gotten at Christmas time. So you'd get in the van, you'd take off your winter jacket, you'd get comfortable, take your shoes off, and you would try and distract yourself for that hour drive. But I always remember we would get on the Gene Snyder Freeway, and on the Gene Snyder Freeway, there's exit 5. And even when I was a little kid, only 7 or 8 years old, when we got to exit 5, I knew we were close. Now, my grandparents were incredible grandparents. They actually had everything ready for the second we would walk through the door. They had made ices for us in the freezer that they'd have ready to pull out and give us so we could get even more sugared up. They had presents under the tree. Everything was ready in anticipation of our arrival. And when we hit exit number 5, I knew I needed to get my shoes on. I knew that I needed to get ready to go, because when that car pulled in to 5 Canterbury Lane where my grandparents lived, I wanted to be ready. So the Apostle Paul wrote in his letter to the Philippians in chapter 3, he talked about being ready. Listen to what he says. He says, I want to know Christ, yes, to know the power of his resurrection and participation in his sufferings, becoming like him in his death, and so somehow attaining to the resurrection from the dead. Not that I have already obtained all this or have already arrived at my goal, but I press on to take hold of that for which Christ Jesus took hold of me. Brothers and sisters, I do not consider myself yet to have taken hold of it, but one thing I do, forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead. I press on toward the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus. Paul knew that there was something incredibly good that was set out ahead of us spiritually. He said, I haven't gotten there yet. I eagerly anticipate it. I am working towards it. He's saying, I am on exit 5, and I am putting my shoes on because something very, very good is ahead of us. Parkside, when I think about our future, I don't think it's an age group. I don't think it's a certain challenge. I don't think it's a style of music or a cool new thing that we're going to do. I look at all of you, and I think about the people you know, and I think it's time that we load everybody up in the car, and we say, let's go, and let's get ready. Jesus, when he's talking to his disciples in John chapter 14, said, I'm going to my Father's house, and I'm going to prepare a place for you. You know where I'm going, and if I'm going, I'm going to prepare a place for you. You know the way. You know how to get there. And so, Parkside, let's not be distracted by all the good things that we have and all the good things that we've experienced. Let's keep our head up and look towards exit 5 and say, you know what? I want to have my shoes on. I want to be ready. And I want to tell people that I know the way to the good things that God has in store for all of us. And be like the Apostle Paul and say, we haven't gotten there yet, but I'm straining. I'm longing towards the goal, because the amazing promise we have in Jesus is that he's gone ahead of us. And he has got everything set up. So let's not be the only ones who go to that party. Let's make sure that we get a carload full.
Thanks, Matt. There's a mental technique that is recommended to some folks today who have a struggle with their thoughts and where their thoughts take them. It's called mindfulness. Mindfulness is a means of being intensely aware of where you are and what's going on around you at the very moment. Because thoughts can distract us, thoughts of the past, whether that is something we've done that we regret, something we agonize over, whatever it might be, it can cause us to miss the moment that we're in. Same way with the future. There are, unless we have a tricked out DeLorean and have Doc by our side, you can't go into the past or the present to do anything and make it any different. The past is what it is, and the future is what it will be, but what we have is the present. And to live in the present is the very best way to regard each day as it comes. Well, that's what in the psychological world, what mindfulness is all about, living in the moment and being aware of the moment. But the brother of Jesus gave us some good advice, and he talks about spiritual mindfulness. He says, here's what we need to keep in mind. He says, come now, you who say today or tomorrow we will go into this or that town and spend a year there and do business and make a profit. You don't know about tomorrow. What is your life like? For you are a puff of smoke, as one translation puts it, or you're a vapor. You appear for a short time and then you vanish. You ought to say instead, if the Lord is willing, then we will live and then we will do this or that. What he's telling us is that the future is an unpredictable wild child. We have no way of knowing what the future holds, and so to invest too much in something that is that loose is kind of a waste of what we have in the present to invest in something that uncertain. Now, certainly there are things that are certain to us in the future. We know that this life is going to come to an end. That's for certain. It's going to happen. And we have to prepare for that. And we know how to do that through Christ. He's the way, the truth, the life. And we come to God through Him and prepare for eternity through Him. So that much we know we can prepare for and should. But otherwise, we need to live in the moment that we know that we have and live it in the way that God calls us to. We can spend so much time looking to the season beyond the one that we're in. We do that with the seasons of the calendar. If it's summer, we say, oh, I can't wait till it's fall when things finally cool off. Or if it's spring, oh, I can't wait till it's summer when I can wear my shorts and tank top. And we're always looking ahead to what isn't. And if we do that, we miss out on what is. We can do that in seasons of our lives. Whether it's a job that we have now and we wish the job was different and it might be coming someday. Or, kids. I know when I was a kid, you're always looking forward to, I can't wait till I get big enough to do this or that, drive my own car, or do what I want, or eat as much candy as is out there, Anticipate what is or what isn't yet and yearn for that. But even as adults, we do that. Oh, I wish life could be this or that, and maybe someday this will be true, and I can finally be satisfied. So one thing that I'm learning as I get older is the scriptures talk about numbering our days or counting our days, and I'm starting to do that more. As a younger person, time just stretched on endlessly for me, and I had countless opportunities to do this or that or make this or that right. And I don't feel quite that way anymore. I'm starting to count my days and say, I got to make my days count. And so when I look at the moment that I'm in, like even the physical world around me, we have a beautiful cherry tree in our backyard. And in the spring, it's absolutely gorgeous when it bursts into bloom. And I'll go out and I'll take a picture of it. And one day I stopped myself and I said, no, wait a minute. Don't just take a picture of it. Go look at it. What is it that makes this so beautiful? And so I walk out there and I get right up on those flowers. I get that flower right up in my face and look at those blossoms and how they're put together. the neighbors probably wonder what in the world is going on with Bart. He's out there scrutinizing his tree. But I want to take it in and understand the beauty of that. When we were together for Christmas, it was wonderful with our grandkids and with Marilyn's mom with us. And I was thinking all through the day, I don't know how many more of these we have. So I want to appreciate this and soak it in for what it is right now, because I don't know how many more I'm going to get. Living in the here and now. And so even in our relationship with God, we can spend so much time saying, well, God, what's down the road? Who should I be? Where should I go? What should I do in the future? It's future, future, future. And James is saying to us what he wrote here. He's saying, hey, vaporous person, life is happening right now. Don't miss it. So the better things to be asking now, and it's okay to ask God about the future. We might get a future, and it's okay to anticipate that to an extent and even prepare for that to an extent. But maybe a better thing to ask God is, God, what do you want me to do right now? In this moment, in the opportunities that I have, the gifts that you've given me, the people that are around me, the situation that I'm in right now, before I leave this room this morning, what do you want me to do right now? We have to be patient with ourselves. Change, it's okay even to desire change in our lives. I'm not yet what I would hope I could be with God's help. But we've got to be patient with ourselves and understand that it doesn't happen overnight. If you want to do 50 push-ups, you've got to start with 5 before you get to 50. And right now, God says, you're fully adequate to do some things right now, and you don't have to wait. Holiness isn't just some future purity of life that makes us holy. Holiness is listening to God's voice now, hearing what he's saying, and responding to the prompts that he gives us and being obedient to him in the situation that we find ourselves in at the moment. That's true holiness, to be walking in lockstep with God in the present. So here's how Jesus put it another way. James' big brother. Jesus says this to us, but above all, pursue God's kingdom and pursue God's righteousness. And all these other things will be given to you as well. Previous to what he says here, he says, don't worry about what you're going to eat, what you're going to wear, where you're going to live. Don't worry about that. Those are such temporary things. They're here and they're gone, and God will provide exactly what you need. Take the time that you've been given and invest it in something eternal, in God's kingdom, in God's righteousness, in a relationship with God. That's the secure investment that you can make right here and right now. So prepare for what you know is coming. Another life is coming, and prepare for that in the future, yes. But beyond that, live in the present. Live today in the moment that you know that you have, and allow God to make that what he wants it to be, and for you to use that and invest it in its fullness. We're going to welcome the new year in the way that we do every Sunday. We're going to remember what Christ has done for us as he came as God in the flesh, lived with us, revealed God to us in his fullness, showed us the way to find a relationship with God, and then he died for us. So servers, if you'd like to go ahead and get ready, we're going to pass trays which have a cup of juice and some bread, and these are the symbols of that sacrifice of Jesus, his body and his blood. We're going to sing a song as the servers pass these trays, and you can take these symbols and you can hold them as we're singing this song. And then as we're finished with the song, we will spend a few moments in regarding some of the encouragements that you've just heard from us, but most importantly, thanking God for what he did for us in the past that means so much to us in the present and in the future. let's spend some time communing. And so we'll sing, and servers, as we sing, go ahead and pass these elements for us.